I still have the fabric swatches. They're folded in the back of my journal, still smelling faintly of candle wax and hotel ballroom starch. Dusty rose, dove gray, eucalyptus. I held them up against the light in the florist's showroom, trying to match her Pinterest board to reality. She wasn't even there. She was busy that day, too tired from brunch with her friends. So I FaceTimed her, held bouquets up like offerings, tried to read her face through pixels and filters. She'd said, eyes somewhere off-screen. Can you find something less green? I didn't ask why eucalyptus was suddenly too green. I just smiled and thanked the florist and paid the deposit from my own card. She said she'd reimburse me, of course. Later. She never did. But I kept planning. Because I'd promised. Because I was the responsible sister. Because when you're not the favorite, you make yourself useful. It started with the seating chart. That was the first clue I wasn't supposed to stay long. I noticed my name missing, thought it was a mistake. Then I saw I'd been grouped with the vendors. No +1, no entree selection, no chair with a sash. When I asked, she waved it off with a laugh. Oh my God, you're so sensitive. It's just temporary. We're still figuring things out. But it never changed. Neither did the silence from our mother when I brought it up. Just that tight-lipped smile she always wore when I said something too much. I kept going anyway. I scheduled fittings, hunted for signature cocktails, even printed the rehearsal dinner menus on my lunch break at work. I'd like to say I did it for her, but if I'm honest, I did it for the version of her I'd built in my head. The version who would notice, who would thank me, who might finally see me. The week before the wedding, she called me. Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. Hey, so I've been thinking, maybe it's best if you just, take a step back. There's just been a lot of tension. People are talking. I waited for her to say she was kidding. She wasn't. I still love you, obviously. I just think it's better for the vibe, for everyone's comfort. I didn't cry. I think that made her madder than if I had, because she kept talking, justifying, layering it with false kindness. You can still watch it online. As if that was a gift. As if I should be grateful not to ruin her big day with my presence. I hung up, sat there in the dark with the call log still glowing. My hands felt numb. The floral invoice was still unpaid. The venue walkthrough had been confirmed under my name. The bridesmaid robes. I'd bought those. She never reimbursed me. That night I lit a candle in my tiny apartment and wrote down every single thing I'd paid for, every favor I'd done, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, and I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I was 7 when I realized the softest parts of my mother were reserved for someone else. She'd pull Addie into her lap like she was made of silk, tuck her curls behind her ears, whisper things that made her giggle into her shoulder. With me, it was always firmer, a hand on my back to push, not to cradle, a towel tossed, not wrapped. Addie had tantrums like hurricanes, full of screaming and slammed doors and declarations of unfairness. But she was always forgiven, always just tired or not feeling well or too passionate for this world. When I cried, I was too sensitive. When I asked questions, I was disrespectful. When I needed something, it was always bad timing, so I stopped needing. That's how you survive when you're not the favorite. You shrink, you help, you become low maintenance, something to be managed, not loved. I remember the first birthday I planned for her. She was turning 15. I was 16, had just gotten my first paycheck from the bookstore down the street. I spent half of it on baking supplies, the rest on a necklace she'd mentioned once, months before. The cake didn't rise right. The frosting cracked. She barely noticed. Mom laughed and said, next year maybe she should order it from the bakery instead. Addie got a party with balloons and fairy lights. I got a stack of dirty dishes and an empty kitchen when everyone left. Still, I kept planning. So when she asked me to help with her wedding, it didn't feel strange. It felt inevitable. I was the list maker, the spreadsheet keeper, the one who remembered allergies and vendor names and when the final payments were due. They joked that I was basically her wedding planner. But I wasn't paid. I wasn't thanked. And in the end, I wasn't invited. I started getting texts the day after that call. From cousins, from aunts, even the makeup artist. Each one more careful than the last. Hey, I heard something happened. Did you and Addie have a falling out? Just checking in, hope everything's okay. I didn't answer any of them. There's something painful about having to explain your own erasure. It feels like giving it permission. So I stayed quiet. And then the rehearsal photos started showing up online. There she was, wearing the robe I ordered, holding the bouquet I designed. Standing beneath the arch I chose from the rental catalog, surrounded by the same people who'd once called me the glue of the family. Not one of them noticed I was missing. Or worse, they noticed and agreed. That weekend, I went to a small thrift bookstore on the other side of town. I brought a coffee, wore my softest sweater, and wandered for hours. I bought a novel I'd loved as a teenager. I went home, lit that same candle, and started erasing her name from every reservation, every invoice, every contract I'd signed, on her behalf. Not loudly, not cruelly, just one click at a time. I don't think she ever knew how much of it was held together by me. The email chains, the guest count adjustments, the last-minute allergy notice I caught buried in a message from Uncle Peter's wife. Even the groomsmen suits. She forgot to order them. I had to call the shop and beg. There's a kind of quiet grief in realizing how much of yourself was poured into something that no one saw. But grief is patient. It waits. It doesn't slam doors. It simmers in silence until the room goes cold and no one notices you've left. The morning of her wedding, I woke up to my phone buzzing. Dozens of texts, mostly from vendors. Hi, just confirming where to drop the centerpieces? Hi, need to verify the backup playlist for cocktail hour. Hey, it says Rachel M. is the day of contact. Is that still you? They still thought I was coming. I stared at the screen in my lap. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt still, like the moment before snowfall, where everything feels suspended. Then I opened the laptop. I canceled the coffee cart. It was in my name. I had paid the deposit. I revoked my access to the wedding website, deleted my digital planning board, unshared the Google Drive. I emailed the rental company and updated the file. The final payment hadn't gone through yet. I was the card on file. I told them to remove me. Then I sat back and watched as the carefully polished timeline started to unravel. By mid-morning, I started getting more texts. Did you change the passcode for the photo booth? Hi, I can't reach the caterer. Can you resend the timeline? Addie's asking where the flower girl's basket is. Still, I said nothing. My silence wasn't spite. It was relief. I had done everything they asked. And then more. And then more. And when it came time to stand beside her, they called me too emotional. So I chose stillness. I chose absence. That was my final gift. Later that night, I saw a video someone tagged me in. Addie, standing under the arch. The wine blowing too hard. The mic crackling. The flowers slightly off color. Someone had clearly rushed to get substitutes. She smiled anyway. She always did, for cameras. But the shimmer of perfection was gone. Just a little roughness at the edge. Just enough for people to wonder why. Just enough for her to feel it, even if she didn't understand it. And that somehow was enough for me. The day after the wedding, my phone rang 6 times. I watched it light up on the windowsill beside my plants. Each time the same name. Mom. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, not exactly. But because I knew what would be waiting on the other side. The brittle tone, the careful words, the way she'd lace guilt into every breath. She wouldn't ask how I felt. She wouldn't apologize. She'd just ask why I had to make everything so difficult. That evening, I finally opened the family group chat. There were a few blurry photos from the reception. My sister with the cake. My sister on the dance floor. My sister surrounded by their friends in satin blush dresses that I had helped pick. Dresses I wasn't allowed to wear. One comment read, "Such a magical night. Everything came together so beautifully." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Everything came together, and yet I wasn't there. A few days passed. Addie didn't call. Not once, but I saw her stories. A close-up of her hand against the airplane window. A glass of champagne. A spa pool with eucalyptus steam. Honeymoon. And then, buried between 2 clips of her in a white robe, a post of the reception venue tagged with a caption, "So much stress. So much drama. But we made it." I didn't comment. I didn't even screenshot it. I just closed the app and stared at the wall of my apartment. The light was changing. That gentle orange stretch of dusk falling across my floor. For the first time in weeks, it felt like mine. I took a long shower that night. Longer than usual. Washed my hair. Sat on the tiled floor with my knees tucked up. Let the hot water fill the silence she left behind. It wasn't sadness I felt. Not anymore. It was something quieter. Like waking up from a dream I didn't know I was having. The next morning, I made coffee and opened my email. There were new messages from the venue, the DJ, the florist, all asking about final balances. Somehow, she hadn't changed the contacts. For a moment, I hovered over the reply button. I could have forwarded them to her, sent a neat summary, even paid it and chalked it up to closure. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my notes app, typed 3 words, "no longer responsible," and hit send. I wrote her a letter, not out of impulse, but over days, in the quiet minutes between emails at work, on the bus home, after brushing my teeth when the apartment felt too still. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't angry. It was just real. I told her what it felt like to sit in the background of our lives, to be the one that remembered, planned, fixed, the one who never needed anything, and so was treated like she needed nothing. I wrote about the cake I tried to make when we were kids, the one that collapsed, the one she didn't eat, I wrote about the bridesmaid dress I never got to wear. The day she called me dramatic for asking why I wasn't on the seating chart. The robe I ordered that showed up in all her honeymoon photos. But I also wrote this. I don't hate you. I never did. I just finally stopped trying to earn your love like a paycheck. The letter sat on my desk for 3 days. Unsealed, unstamped. It watched me while I folded laundry, while I ate leftovers in front of the TV, while I watered the peace lily by the window. And then one night, I lit a match. Watched the paper curl at the edges in the sink. No drama, no ashes flung into the wind. Just silence and the faint scent of paper turning to light. A week later, I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was clipped. Tired. Addie's upset. She said you sabotaged her day. I don't know what happened, but you could have just let it be about her. That last line sat with me. Let it be about her, as if it hadn't always been. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the post office and changed my mailing address. There was nothing left for me at the old house. Not even a photo on the wall. I started boxing up memories I didn't need to carry anymore. The swatches, the planning binders, the unopened thank you cards I once drafted for her to sign. They went into the trash. Not as revenge, but as relief. For the first time, I could breathe without waiting for their next request. For the next fire I was expected to put out. For the next role I was expected to play in someone else's story. And, in that quiet, I began writing something else, a new version of me. One who didn't ask for permission to rest. It was a Tuesday. Nothing special. Just one of those in-between days where the sky can't decide if it's going to rain or clear. I was walking home from work, scarf wrapped, high around my chin, headphones in, some soft acoustic song playing that I wasn't really listening to. Then my phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Addie. Her name lit up the screen like a name tag I no longer recognized. I paused under a rusting bus stop awning and opened it. Hey, I know things got weird, but I wanted to say thanks for everything you did. Sorry if things got out of hand. You know how weddings are. Hope we can talk soon. That was it. No mention of uninviting me. No acknowledgement of the months I carried her dream on my back. Just, things got weird. As if erasing someone is a scheduling glitch. I didn't respond. Not that day. Not the next. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I used to chase closure, like it was oxygen, like I couldn't breathe until someone told me I mattered. But there's a strange kind of peace in not replying. In knowing the silence itself says enough. A few days later, she posted a photo of the two of us. It was old, from years ago. We were in our teens, both laughing in matching sweaters. The caption read, "Sisters go through ups and downs, but the love's always there." I stared at it for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I knew the version of me in that photo no longer existed. The one who bent herself into shapes to fit. The one who stayed small so others could shine. That night, I muted her account. No announcement. No dramatic unfollow. Just quiet. Like turning the volume down on a song I didn't like anymore. A week passed. Then 2. Life moved on. The way it does when you stop watering dying things. I started saying no more. To extra shifts, to late-night favors, to calls from people who only dialed when they needed something. It felt strange at first, this new boundary, but also sacred. Sometimes healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's a rented apartment with candles and chipped mugs. Sometimes it's letting people wonder why you disappeared and not explaining. It was a Sunday morning, the kind where light filters through blinds like gold thread and everything feels softer than it did the week before. I woke up before my alarm. No reason, no plan. But I felt something stirring under my ribs. Not sadness, not anger. Just the quiet urge to begin. I pulled my hair into a loose knot and walked to the corner thrift store, the one that always smelled faintly of cinnamon and old wood polish. There, tucked behind a chipped nightstand and a faded lamp, was a small dining table, round, worn at the edges. Just enough space for one chair. Two, maybe, if you were generous. I stared at it for a long time, and then I bought it. Back in my apartment, I moved the coffee table aside and made room near the window. I wiped down the surface with a damp cloth, fingers tracing the grooves like they were old scars. Then I placed one chair, just one, at the edge. A soft cushion, a folded napkin, a single mug with steam curling up like smoke from a slow fire. I didn't light the candle this time. Instead, I opened a journal, the one with the swatches, still tucked in the back. But today, I didn't write about her, or Mom, or anyone who used to live rent-free in my mind. I wrote about how it felt to sit in a chair I chose, in a home that didn't need to be earned, in silence that wasn't punishment, but peace. Later, I made myself lunch. Nothing fancy, just soup and toast. But I plated it like it mattered. No paper napkins, no eating over the sink. Just a proper place for me, as if I were my own guest. It felt ceremonial. It felt honest. Like giving myself the kindness I'd handed out for free all those years. The sun dipped lower, and shadows stretched across the floor like the long arms of memory. I didn't flinch. Somewhere in the distance, I imagined Addie's voice again. Airy, polished, curated. But it didn't reach me. That part of the story had already closed, quietly, without applause. Healing, I've learned, isn't a door slam. It's one plate. One chair. One silent afternoon where you sit in your own light and decide, this is enough. It was Thanksgiving. I hadn't planned on going. The invitation came late, as if sent out of obligation, a group message from Mom with no greeting, no warmth, just a time, a place, and a list of what to bring. I almost deleted it, but something in me, not anger, not longing, just curiosity, said yes. Not to be welcomed. Not to be part of something, but to stand in the same room and finally feel what it was like, to no longer need to. I wore a dark sweater, long sleeves, no makeup. I didn't bring a dish, just a bottle of wine, the cheap kind, like they always brought to my apartment without asking. When I arrived, the house looked the same. The chipped welcome mat. The plastic leaf wreath that had been there since I was in high school. The smell of cloves and canned cranberry. Addie was already there. She looked surprised, not happy, not upset, just startled, like someone seeing a ghost that chose not to haunt them. Dinner was the usual chaos. Laughter layered over complaints, the clatter of serving spoons and folded paper napkins. I watched it all like a tourist. Polite smile, quiet sips. They seated me at the corner of the long folding table, next to the hallway. An extra chair, No name card. No one noticed I hadn't taken seconds. It should have stung. Once, it would have. But this time, it felt distant. Like watching someone else's memory from the outside. At one point, Addie stood to give a toast. She clinked her glass with a fork and said, "I just want to thank everyone who made this year possible. It was hard, but so beautiful. Especially those who stood by me through all the drama." She didn't look at me. No one did. But that was the moment I knew. I wasn't part of their performance anymore, and I didn't need to be. I left before dessert. No big announcement. Just picked up my coat, nodded to the room, and stepped out into the cold. The air was sharp and clean. Quiet. When I got home, I changed into pajamas, lit the candle on my kitchen counter, the one I hadn't used since the night she cut me out, and made tea. Then I sat at my round little table in my one chosen chair and ate a slice of pumpkin pie I'd bought for myself, alone, at peace, and not lonely.